are nearer to the end of our course. Module 4, Contract Closeout. The second pillar of construction contract management with the following topics. First topic, description of contract closeout. Contract closeout process. Inputs to contract closeout. Tools and techniques. Outputs of contract closeout. To briefly describe contract closeout process, this involves both work verification and administrative closeout. Work verification. A question had to be asked from project team. Were the works correctly and satisfactorily completed? The project management process put in place must be able to verify work performances. Administrative closeout. Updating of records to reflect final results and archiving of such information for future use. The records and information management system should be in place and functioning properly. The contract closeout process provides the manner by how a project must be closed. In the many years of my project management experience, seldom do I encounter a real closure of projects. What you're about to view are good practices closing a contract. Inputs to contract closeout. Contract documentation. Tools and techniques used. Contract audit. Outputs of contract closeout. Contract files. Formal acceptance. And post-construction analysis. Why is record and information management important? When into a contract, records and information keeping prepares both parties to have documentary evidence for use in a potential disagreement. Contract documentation is very important in managing projects. All relevant records and information generated throughout the project life representing those that existed, happened, or did not happen, and includes but not limited to the pre-project planning records, the agreement, contract documents and amendments, all procurement documents, all construction records from pre-construction, construction, post-construction. There are stages in contract documentation. The two stages are, first, the pre-contract award phase documentation. The bid documents are basic sources of pre-contract award documentation. These documents will be the basis for changes and claims. A function should be assigned to make sure the records and information are maintained. Second, the construction phase documentation. All contract-associated documents throughout the construction phase other than the bid documents. Following are contract documentation stages. The pre-contract award phase. The company documents compilation are project approval documents, specialist contracts, project execution manual, company policies and procedures, quality manual, environment, health and safety and security manuals, engineering guidelines, RIM, Records and Information Management System. The contracts have contract documents, amendments, addenda, schedules, bonds and insurances, and procurement documents. Contract documentation stage at construction phases. Pre-construction, Site Management Procedure Manual, Design Standards and Building Codes, Design Deliverable Standards, Drawing Management and Standards, Method Statements, Detailed Work Plans, Locational Requirements, Government Permits and Clearances, Equipment Purchase Plan, both construction and for the building, project organization. Contract documentation stage at construction phases continuation. Construction, shop drawings, construction drawings, purchase orders, regulatory compliance, submittals, commissioning data, job diaries, job logs, job progress, stop work orders, field surveys, special situation, issues management system, change orders, changes and claims records, cost reports, change or claim and field orders logs. Contract documentation stage at construction phase, post-construction. Permit to operate, as-built drawings, punch lists, commissioning reports, notice of substantial completion, certificate of final completion and acceptance, certificate of occupancy, cost accounting, guarantees, warranties, and operation and maintenance manuals, training interventions, final payments, outstanding items list, and affidavit or payment ban for liens. All of the documents I have mentioned are the records and information that the project produces, and if not properly managed, will impact the contract. Tools and techniques used in contract closeout process. Contract audit. Why is it necessary to regularly assess the project management operations? Policies and procedures were established to be followed and should be verified. If indeed these are supported. Contract audit. It is a structured internal review of contract administration process. This is to ensure adherence to all of the requirements specified in the contracts. Definitely, the project has contract requirements. The owner may have its owner auditors. The constructor may have its constructor auditors. Both auditors perform project audits. There are different types of contract audit. Successful companies audit themselves as a policy because of compliance requirements and for continual improvements. Number 1, technical audit. Number 2, contract performance audit. Number 3, contract audit at completion. Have you done any of these types of audit? Maybe you did, or none at all. Let's go through each of the types of audit. Audit type number 1, technical audit. Examination of the disciplines being billed versus the work plan. Is your company paying for the full cost of materials when these are yet to be installed? Audit type number 2, contract performance audit. Determine the extent of compliance by all contracting parties with the contract terms. Project status reports are periodically verified via a prepared audit checklist. Current project conditions are validated as to its real situation. Contract audit at completion. The third type. Checks on elements of work progress upon contract completion, including the proper disposition of records according to the Records and Information Management. Verification of all costs, those that were billed and paid. Clearances of all contracts, such as subcontracts, special agreements, and etc. Then, property disposals, according to the generally accepted accounting practices and company policies. CPES, Constructors Performance Evaluation System, if government project. Government Procurement Reform Act, Republic Act 9184, Section 12, Annex E of the revised IRR provides for implementing the CPES with government projects by a CPES evaluator. Performance evaluation uses a checklist to produce a CPES rating at phases: pre-construction, construction, post-construction. To do contract audits, typical standard procedures have to be established. Best practices call for the owner and constructor to have these procedures in their project management system. Part 1. Objective: to conduct a regularly scheduled review of contract administration of all projects. Part 2. Purpose and scope. With sections: Section A, policy. Section B, frequency of audit. Section C, review committee. Section D, reports. And Section E, review items. Section A, policy. The conduct of the contract audit shall be one of the overall management duties of contract administrator. Contract administrator interfaces with legal group, project management, finance group. Section B, frequency of audit. Contract administrator undertakes during the project execution a series of periodic audits at specific stages. Normally, 20%, 50%, and 80% completion, or as needed. Audits are performed at any time. Section C, Review Committee. The permanent representations of the committee are composed of the chairman, de facto held by the contract administrator, with members project manager, and responsible individual of specific contract discipline. The disciplines are civil and structural, architectural, mechanical and electrical, and etc., to cite a few. Section D, Reports. The contract administrator verbalizes the status report of progress during the audit program. Findings and recommended corrective action is directed to the senior management with copies to committee members. Section E, Review Items. With representative listing of audit parameters, the committee verifies as part of its review the following: proper reporting of cost, billings and payments are in accordance with contract procedures and terms, applied insurance certification notices. Section E, Review Items Continuation. Maintenance by contract administration of adequate record monitoring system. Procurement activities being carried out per set policies, including negotiation of changes and subcontracts, etc. Another question for you: how are contract files accumulated? Construction projects generate large volumes of files, and these are to be managed as a project contract file. Output of contract closeout. Contract files. Contract files, a complete set of index records and consolidated into the final project records. I will talk about a best practice. A systematized records and information at project start organizes project files at project close. Many project managers do not think about that. Engineers are generally action persons, ready to charge, and most of the time do not hold back to set up some systems. The general rule on file keeping. Data on personnel, financial, and compliance with law and company are preserved and protected according to policies and legalities. File of historical value are kept to improve future performances. Contract file accumulations. In the construction stages, at briefing, all terms of reference. At designing and bidding, the contract documents. At constructing, all construction documents. During commissioning, all closeout documents. These are the project files and become the project's records and information. Records and information of the project has a flow of records and information. These are handled according to the company's records and information management or RIM system. The project RIM is subordinated by the company's RIM system and is maintained at Site Document Center. At the project close, documents are primary records, comply with records hold, are archived per retention schedule. All of these are returned into the business RIM and ultimately to the company's RIM system. Do you remember this organizational matrix where the CM, construction manager, is the owner's representative? The CM manages the records and information in the project site. There are approval requirements for records and information, such as for drawings, documents, having contractual impacts, specifications, the detailed specifications, engineering data to be used in the project, methodologies to apply, changes, issues, and etc. We have a constructor, architects, engineers. These parties transmit for approval the records and information to CM, who is the owner's representative, and the CM returns approvals to constructor and architects, engineers. The project must have procedures for approving records and information. I will show you a typical records and information flow of a large project. Your project, if smaller, can adapt to this setup. Central to the flow is the construction manager's DC, document center on site. The owner may have a document center on site too. The owner, in this case, is a company. The three entities interface with each other. How these entities manage the records and information are guided by the Construction Site Management Procedures Manual. The architects, engineers, and advisor move records and information to and from the CMDC on site. Constructor has a document center on site. The constructor DC receives and transmits to CMDC on site. Constructor's DC on site interfaces with external entities like subcontractors, consultants, suppliers, and others. Then to constructor's company. Architects, engineers, and advisor may exchange records and information with constructor's DC on site directly, but these are non-contractual communications. All regulatory, statutory, and public documents go directly to CMDC on site. This flow actually is described in the Site Procedures Manual. What are your challenges in the final completion and acceptance of your project? A formal process of acceptance must be established and agreed on. Output of contract closeout. Formal acceptance. Formal acceptance is the final milestone date of the construction project. The project is ready for occupancy or use. Upon achieving the zero punch list, meaning the clearing of all punch list items, we are now at project completion. The owner signs formal acceptance. The owner starts occupancy. Constructor proceed with the project close steps. The turnover process. Owner and constructors sit down to plan, organize, record, and go through process of formal acceptance. The references used are construction contracts, contractual time schedule, and commissioning and handover manual. The commissioning process follows the commissioning procedure manual. The activities starts at pre-contract. The commissioning requirements are specified. To contract, including all the provisions for commissioning. To pre-construction, commissioning planning and scheduling. To construction, installation according to the plan and schedule. To contract execution, completion of the installations. To final inspection, testing, and commissioning. To final acceptance, turnover, satisfaction of the performance criteria. To post-final inspection, sustainable performance verification. To post-construction, life cycle, and integrity testing. And ending with defects liability period up to the agreed duration. The Certificate of Completion is a very important document to be signed with the owner. The constructor notifies the owner of the project completion and go through the agreed processes. Substantial completion. This is about 95% completion. And by practice, the project is substantially completed at that percentage. Constructor writes the owner formal notice of substantial completion. Punch list generation starts on recognition of the notice of substantial completion by the owner. Zero punch list is achieved when the constructor had addressed the listed items. The period to make good known defects or faults is from punch list to zero punch list. At the point of zero punch list, notice of final inspection is issued by the constructor. On recognition by the owner of the notice and the acceptance of completed punch list, the project close process commences. Constructor formalizes the Certificate of Final Completion and Acceptance. Formal acceptance is issued or the Certificate of Final Completion and Acceptance is signed by the owner. The owner starts the occupancy. Best practice requires that no occupancy happens before formal acceptance. The acceptance criteria state specific conditions for both parties to comply. Constructor and owner proceed to administratively close the project. However, in almost all project situations, there exists varied outstanding works, such as on defects, deficiency, and non-conformance. These are specially handled. Varied outstanding works, special contractual provisions agreed at final completion and acceptance. These specify the handling of minor works identified at the date of final completion and acceptance, such as deficiency, defects, non-conformance. How are varied outstanding works handled? Bear with me with some details. At the date of final acceptance, we look forward to the short term of the use and set the standard length for the end date of warranty, retention of money, and defects liability. Also, at the date of final acceptance, VOWs, varied outstanding works, are identified and acted upon. The VOWs are corrected up to its actual completion date, a date which is after the date of final acceptance. This is now the VOWs start date. And with the same standard length for warranty, etc., the VOWs end date for the warranty, retention, and defects liability is patterned. The difference between the standard end date and VOWs end date is called the excess period. Now, this answers how varied outstanding works are handled. Prerequisites. Other conditions for issuing Certificate of Final Inspection and Acceptance. Operation and Maintenance Manuals. User's Instructions. As-built drawings. User training. Permits. Special requirements like life cycle tests and integrity tests. Certificate of Completion, Sample Number 1. Form of Completion Certificate and Form of Operational Acceptance Certificate. Reference Clause, Completion of Project. Reference Subclause, Operational Acceptance. Certificate of Completion, Sample Number 2. Final Certificate of Acceptance Form. Final Acceptance and Completion, Reference Article. Outstanding Works, Excess Period. Retention, Reference Clause. Performance Bond, Reference Clause. Defects Correction, Reference Article. Final Account, As-built drawings, Schedule of Trainings. Into the project closing, there are post-acceptance outcomes. These are the releases of performance bonds of the constructor, construction risk insurances, retention payments from 90% completion. Then commences the property insurance of owner, defects liability period on project functionalities, design liability by law, warranties and guarantees on design and physical aspects, retention period, professional indemnities when required, and liens and hold harmless agreements. Output of contract closeout, post-construction analysis. In post-construction analysis, a completion of both construction and administrative activities of a project. Demobilization, the start of cleanup and move out from the site. Contract records and information archiving. Administrations related to occupancy. These should be organized by owner and constructor. Management program established for addressing defects liability and warranty guarantee. Final cost reconciliation, actual versus budget. Financial report is documented, reviewed and analyzed, and summarized. Assets created in the project, capitalized, and let's talk about this in the next slide. Capitalization. Cost to be capitalized is for expenditures such as capital spending consisting of capitalized cost and capital asset, and leasehold improvement with operating lease and capital lease spending on improvements. The expenditures are booked as assets under property, plant, and equipment of the financial statements as in the balance sheets. Have you noticed that a project closure report is seldom written or none at all? Project closure report provides the organization historical information which can be referenced to improve performances. At project closure, a project closeout achievement system must be established early in the life of the project. This assures that the criteria required to close out the project in all details are covered as the work progresses. Probably your facts. The project is never properly closed out since the project team has not prepared for this important part. Project closure. With a divergence between projections and actual experience, the causes of deviations are analyzed with respect to cost and time, benefits, aspects of implementation. The project closure report will be fully completed with the analysis. The report is archived for future reference. Project development cycle. In view of the project life cycle, business planning, investment approvals, construction, useful life management, end of useful life and asset disposal, these go through time 0 to time n. The validation of projections is performed by doing investigation of project performance and impacts to plans and needs. A post-construction analysis is generated but only after incurring investment costs or the financials are finally closed. Learning check of Module 4, Contract Closeout. Contract closeout process, when applied, leads to closing the contract. Contract documentation is a very important aspect to closing. To assure the contracts are executed accordingly, an audit system had to be adopted. Projects are finally accepted and the contract properly closed.